So this section, we will discuss about array, and especially we will discuss about the numerical data, and then how we can use array for tallying. So it means we can use array for calculation, and we can use array for text processing. So this array can be also for text or for character. Now let's see if array in the numerical data, what can we do and what is the concept behind array. I put one Java solution. I think you can open your, okay, I need to open my Eclipse. So I already upload zip file, and the zip file contains the Java file. So you can take a look on the analyze numbers.java. If you know all the assignments, okay, practice, and also the exam, I give you many problems related to how to compute the average, how to compute the summation. Okay, so maybe average is not in the case, but yeah, there's one problem. But yeah, we learn many things about how to do the summation. For example, in the mid exam, we have that problem. So those kind of calculation, those kind of arithmetic operation should be understandable. Okay, and in this problem, I want to use a very simple way to analyze the numbers. So let's open the file section 06. So in my case, I put in the folder here. I have the section 06, and let's copy and paste to the Eclipse environment. So I will make a new package. And then I will put all the files here. Okay. So let's open this. Okay, did you get the files? So in this file, we want to analyze one a collection of numbers. Okay, what is a collection of numbers? So I can say something like, let's say I have numbers like this one. So I have a few numbers, and I want to know what is the average, what is the summation. Let's say I have number 5, and then I have number 4, and then I have a number 3, and then I have a number 6, and then I have a number 2. Okay, for example. And the problem is, what is the average? So we need to use the scanner, and then we need to input any number here. And then whenever we have the number, we can just make a kind of variable sum. So let's say this is num. Num equals to 5. And then sum will be plus equal to num. Okay. And then after we put the summation into the variable sum, we can update again the num. equals to 4, and then again sum plus equal to num. And then we want to get another input, num equals to 3, and then again sum plus equal to num. Then yeah, we have another number. We have again sum equals to num, and then we have another number, and then we have sum plus equal to num. So this is repetition. Okay, because we know that it is repeated. Yeah, we can do with while, or we can do with for loop. Okay, and after we have this one, we need to get the average. So what is the average? In this case, the average is sum divided by the number that you have here. So how many numbers do you have? So in this case, I have 5 numbers. So if you want, you can have like C plus plus. Then C will be added by 1. And then here C will be added by 1. 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 So we can know that there are 5 numbers. So the average will be sum divided by C. Okay. But if I want to know what is the maximum among the input, if you just use the variable num, then you may not know all the inputs. So if you want to get what is the maximum, yeah, you already learned. Maybe you know about how to get the maximum. We compare. If the 5 is greater than 4, yeah, then 5 is the maximum. Yeah. But if you have many numbers, yeah, you need to check one by one. How if I want to keep all the numbers? 5, 4, 3, 6, 2. So I want to see that number again after doing the average, after calculating the maximum, or after finding the minimum, and so on. This will be a problem if you use only one variable. Okay. Okay. So if we want to make 10 numbers, okay, if we want to save every number, okay, maybe I saw some of the students when you got the problem on the mid exam. I give one example. So input a number. Okay. So uh, sorry. So the internet here is not. I don't know why it's off. So when I ask you to input 5 numbers, you know, you can use the for loop, but you just input num with system.out.print, system.out.print for 5 times. Actually, you can do it for loop, but there are some students type system.out.println, system.out.println, system.out.println 4 or 5 times. Yes, of course, it is good if you have only 5. But how if you have 100? Okay, so some of you still do not understand about the concept of for. Maybe we need to have more practice about this one. In this kind of array, we want to do something better to save the value. So if you have all the values, if you want to keep all the values, there are two ways. The first way is you can make a new variable, and each of the number will be saved in the variable. Maybe this is num1, this is num2, this is num3, this is num4, until we can make num9. Okay, so it means you make 10 variables. Is it okay? Yeah, if the number of values here is only 10, yeah, I think you can just copy and paste, copy and paste, copy and paste, and so on. But how if you have 1,000 numbers? How if you have 1,000,000 numbers? So it will be not feasible to use many variables like this one. So we need to use array. I think in Korean it's yo. I'm not sure about the Korean character. Okay, something like that one. Now, what is the meaning by array? Array is a data structure that represents a collection of the same types of data. So we learned the basic data structure, and this is the collection of the same type of data. If I explain this one is a double, then all the values will be double. If I explain this as integer, then all values will be integer. We use the square bracket. What is square bracket? Square bracket. This is the square bracket. If I want to explain about integer value, then I can type I in T, and then I can make the square bracket. And this square bracket will represent that I want to make an array of integer. And I can define my variable. For example, num. Okay, in this case, it is my list. Okay, and then you can have new. So I want to create a new array, okay, and this array will be an integer, and I want to have 10 numbers. Okay, so the value of integer will be only 10 because you specify 10. If you specify this one 20, then the size will be for 20 numbers. If the value more, yeah, if you want to have more, then you can increase the number according to the needs. So now we have a double, and there are 10, maybe we can say there are 10 locations. There are 10 places. So the first place, or we call it the index 0. So the array will start from index 0. So this is the first data. The first data is 5.6, and it is located in index 0. In index 1, or the second data, the value is 4.5. In index 2, the data number 3, there are the value is 3.3, and so on. We have until the data number 10, and the index will be -1. So if it is the first data, then it is index 0. If it is the second data, and it is in the index 1. If it is the third data, it is in index 2, and so on. Okay. Now, we need to understand that this location is important to know where is that value. I can say that If I want to check 4, okay, the value of 4 is in index 4. What about the value 34? The value 34 is in index 6. What is the location of this value? 1, 1, 1, 2, 3. Okay, the value here is in the position index 9. Okay. Using this idea, you can take a look on the code. Now, I have the scanner. You want to get the input from the user. We have input. Maybe you will surprise with this one. What is this? Java.util.scanner. Yeah, actually, this is the same if you put the import in the first part. Okay. So if you have like import java.util.star, so it means, yeah, you can remove this one. Okay, that's the same. But now we don't use the java.util.star. Instead of this one, yeah, you can see now it's error. So you need to specify where do you get this scanner. So I just want to access to java.util.scanner. That's also possible. And then I want to print something to show the user. Please input this one. So I input n. Okay. After I input n, I want to know what is the size of this array. Okay. So as I explained before, in the square bracket, you need to define the size. So if I input 5, then there will be 5 numbers maximum. If you input 10, then there will be 10 numbers maximum. So this size is important. And also you want to put every of the number in the variable numbers. And then I have a variable sum start with 0. And every time I input the numbers, I would like to save it, this double number, into the numbers I. What does it mean? Here is the index. I will go from 0 until less than n. If n is 5, then it will be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. If n is 10, then it means 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So the index will be placed in the square bracket here. This is to indicate the location. So please distinguish this one and this one. If you put the data type, and the square bracket, so it means it is to define the size. But if you mention the variable name, with the square bracket, then it is to indicate the location, or it is to indicate the index. Okay. So in this case, this is the variable. I want to know the index. What is the index? I. So I, it is index 0 and 1 and then 2 and so on. For this one, we want to get the size. So whenever I input numbers, so in this case I input the double, I will do the summation. And then after I do the summation all, I would like to calculate the average. So the average will be sum is the total divided by n. N is the number that you want to have in the array. And after you have this average, so I want to calculate the number of elements above the average. So I want to know if I input 5, 3, okay, if I input 5, 3, 2, 6, and 4. What is the number that is above the average? You need to calculate the average first. After you calculate the average, then you need to check again the numbers one by one. In this case, I would like to just check how many. So count, it means just starting a number from 0. And then if the numbers from index 0 until index n is above the average, that's plus 1 for the variable count. At the end, we will have the average and then the number of elements that above the average. So how many numbers that is above the average? So I run this, enter the number of items. So I want to enter 5 numbers and then enter numbers. Let's say I put 5, 4, 3, 6, and 2. So the average is 4 and the number of elements above the average is there are 2. What are they? We have 5 and 6. Okay. So the concept of array actually it is to save the data into one variable. Maybe if you have 10 data, you need to have 10 variables. But we do not want to have 10 variables. We can just have one variable, but we have 10 space. So this is what I want to say before. Okay. We can declare the array variables using the data type with the square bracket. So this square bracket before the square bracket after the data type, it is to represent that I want to have a variable and the variable will be an array. So I have double with square bracket and then I have a name, my list. Then this is a variable my list and the my list will be an array. There is another way to declare a variable. For example, you can just use double, that's a common data type, and you declare the variable name and include the square bracket. So in this case, yeah, this is also okay, but it is not preferred. It means it's better to use this way. Okay. So if we are having an array, we need to create the array and we need to define the size. Okay? We need to define the size. If we want to have 10 space or we have the 10 size, yeah, you can define 10. This 10 can be replaced with any variable. For example, in our example, we want to get one value from the user. So let the user choose how many numbers that they want to input. Then you can also use that kind of variable. If there are 10 numbers, so the index 0 will be the first element, and the index 9 will be the last element. We can also declare and create at the same time. So we are declaring the data type and then put the square bracket and then put the variable name, and then we are going to create a new array. This is the array with the double, and define what is the size. Yeah, if you want to use this one, that's also fine, as I mentioned to you, but maybe this kind of format will be better. Remember that array has length. Whenever you have an array, you need to understand how big is the size. And for now, the size is fixed. It cannot be changed. So whenever you create a new array, then you need to define the size, and the size should be used through all your program. You can get the size. For example, you know the variable name, and I can just put dot length to know how big is the size. If I have the my list, this one, and then my list dot length, it means I will get the result 10 because I define the size equals to 10. Whenever we create an array, there will be a default value. Because, for example, you want to create 1000 space. You want to create 1000 elements, but you will not input one by one. Then in that case, you need to understand Java has a default value. It means whenever you create a variable like integer, for example, the default value is 0 if you do not declare anything. Double value, the variable will be default as 0, 0.0. String, so the default is none. So you need to understand that kind of default value. So for example, this one, 0 is for numerical data type. And then this one, dash u 0, 0, 0, 0, it is for the character. And then false, it is for the Boolean. So Boolean, do you know Boolean? Boolean is a data structure that contains only true or false, or sometimes we call it 0 and 1. Okay. So 1 means true, 0 means false. And you need to understand that the index variable in an array, it will be a 0 base. So the array will start from 0 and it will be ended until length minus 1. So for example, you have 10. So the size is 10. Then you will run from 0 until 9. You will have the index from 0 until the length minus 1. So for example, the list, we have my list, it has 10 double values. So the indices, the index will start from 0 until 9. And for every element that we want to check, we need to use the array reference variable, and we put the square bracket and then mention the index. So the index means the location, maybe the 0 or the index 2 or the index 5, etc. Whenever you use that index, you can think that this index is the same with variable. So let's suppose I want to make a kind of summation. So the mylist index 2 is the index 2 will be the result of index 1 plus index 0. That's possible to make such kind of calculation like this one. Mylist index 2 will be the result of mylist index 0 and mylist index 1. So let's see my first array. Okay. So this example is much easier than the first example. You can see now we have the double as the data type, and then we have a variable mylist, and the double, after the double we have the square bracket, so this is indicating that it is an array, and we have the size 10. Okay. So after we have the size 10, we want to define every of the index. So luckily you have only 9. So you can define one by one, like this one. But if you want to make your code in elegant way, then you need to use for loop. Okay. So this is only example to show the same with what we saw before on the PowerPoint. So the index 0 is 5.6. Index 1 is 4.5. Index 2 is 3.3, and so on. If I want to know the length, yeah, you can just print my list.length. If I want to know what is the index 2, so index 2 is 3.3. If I want to know the result of index 2, that is a value from index 0 plus index 1, then this will be the result. So 5.6 plus 4.5, then the result will be 10.1. And then after we have this result, there will be a new result that we want to print. And then we can do the for loop, and the for loop is something like we have this from the 0 until the length. And then we want to print for every element that we have in the array. If you run this, the first is the length. My list length. The length is 10. What is the value of my list index 2? It is 3.3. Okay, it is 3.3. And then we do the calculation. My list 2 equals to my list 0 plus my list 1. Then I want to print what is my list 2? Okay, the result is 10.1. And after that, I want to use the for loop to list up again all the values. So it is from the 0 until less than 10. It means until 9. So we have 1 by 1. So the value will be printed from 5.6 and 4.5, and then, oh, why did it change? Because you just change it here. You just change the value because the minus 2 equals to minus 0 plus minus 1. So that's why it has been updated. It has been updated with the new value. And then the remaining value will be the same with the original value that you inserted. Okay. Okay, let's have a break. Okay, I will continue after the break.